Hello. There we go. Today's scripture reading, the Transfiguration, is a famous one. We do it every year around this time. And it tells the story of this remarkable change that happened to Jesus, but it needs to be put into context. So it happens about halfway through the Gospel of Mark. And what happens in the Gospels is that Jesus has been out doing his thing in Galilee. He's been preaching, he's been sharing the good news, he's been working miracles and healing people all over. And people are starting to wonder, is this the Messiah that we've been expecting? You know, he seems to have the right powers of a Messiah, and he certainly speaks with authority. So maybe this is the guy that we're expecting. And the reason they're expecting Jesus is because Jesus has been spoken about in the scriptures, not as Jesus of Nazareth, but as a Messiah. Moses writes about him. The prophets write about him often, especially Isaiah. And he's anticipated to be someone who will be a savior, who will save the Jewish people from whatever trials and tribulations that they're experiencing. And given the fact that Israel is occupied by the Roman Empire, Jews of his time really think that whoever this Messiah guy is going to be, he's going to be a warrior. He's going to be someone who's going to find a way to raise an army so that they can fight back against the Romans and get rid of this occupying force. So it's a big deal if a Messiah comes, and it's going to change a lot of things. Peter is the first one to figure out that Jesus is probably the Messiah, and he says so. And it happens just before the reading that we heard today. And Jesus says, okay, but keep quiet about that. I don't want everybody to know just yet. Because it'll be dangerous. If the Romans get the idea that this Messiah is around them, then of course the first thing they'll do is arrest him. So Jesus asks him to keep it quiet. But Jesus also tells Peter and the disciples that my kind of Messiah is going to get arrested and killed by the Romans, and then I'm going to come back from the dead 3 days later. Peter and the disciples don't know what to make of this. This does not sound like a victorious warrior Messiah. How could he possibly defeat the Roman Empire if he is going to be defeated by the Roman Empire? It makes no sense at all. So is he really the Messiah? And the text tells us 6 days later, they find out. Because Jesus invites them to go to a mountaintop where they watch as suddenly Moses and Elijah appear on either side of him. Elijah representing the prophets who had predicted a Messiah, and Moses, the giver of the law, both of them meeting the Messiah. And most startling of all is that Jesus is glowing this incredibly bright light. This bright white light is coming out of Jesus' clothes. And in Matthew's account, he says that Jesus' face shone like the sun. So it's just like, wow. And Peter is so confused by this that he goes, wow, this is amazing. Let's build some huts and stay up here. Doesn't get better than this. But just as soon as it's happened, it's done. Moses and Elijah have disappeared. The vision is over, and Jesus looks like himself again. He's not glowing anymore. And he says, come on, we got work to do. Let's go back down. But of course, Peter and John and James are never going to look at Jesus the same way again. They've seen him shine. They've seen that he's got some kind of heavenly glow coming out of him. And they're going to keep that with them for the rest of their lives. They'll never look at his face the same way again. Our culture puts a lot of emphasis on our face. When you meet somebody, the first part of their body you look at is their face. Are they happy to see me? Are they not so happy to see me? Is this going to go okay? We read it all on the face. It'd be very weird if you walked up to someone and the first thing you looked at was their elbow, right? That'd be considered rude. Babies, we're told, the first thing they look for, they don't have very good vision when they're first born, like infants. First thing they look for is faces. Their caretakers' faces are the first things which they take in. And kids, when they grow up, know to look at faces. But not all kids, right? Some kids with autism spectrum disorder, they need to be trained to look at faces. Their teachers and their parents will help them look somebody in the eye because that doesn't come so naturally. We put so much emphasis on our faces. And there's a reason for that. And it's got to do with the muscles in our faces. Do me a favor. Put out your arm and go like this. Okay, so your arm has 24 muscles. Okay, you can stop. You don't have to do this part. Your leg, your leg has 13 muscles. Your face has 43. There's a massive number of muscles in your face. And your face is like a musical instrument. You use it to express, scientists tell us, 10,000 different expressions, right? Happiness, sadness, depression, concern, wariness, quizzical, curious. We can do all this with our faces. It's amazing. That's why there's 43 muscles in there, because we use it to express ourselves so much. And of course, society has figured this out, that the face is the thing, the face is the window to the soul. So we are encouraged to put on a face. It's not enough to just have a face, we have to put on a face, right? Every morning when men wake up, they have to make a decision. Am I going to shave or am I not going to shave? That's the question, right? You know, am I going to have a beard, am I going to have a mustache, or am I going to go clean shaven? And it takes effort to make that decision. And recently, right, a few years ago, hipsters made a big deal out of growing long beards again, something we hadn't seen among men for a long time. ZZ Top beards were back. And even mustaches with wax and stuff was a cool thing. You can say a lot about what group you belong to based on how you wear your face, right? And women, of course, are making the same decision every morning as well. It's not about facial hair so much as it is about makeup, right? How much makeup am I going to put on? Am I going to put on any makeup? What does that say about me that I didn't put on makeup? And the makeup that you wear for a night out on the town is probably not the same makeup that you want to wear on Monday morning at work, right? So you play with makeup, and you decide what sort of face you're going to put out into the world. So faces matter, and our society tells us that we should look as attractive as possible with our face. And of course, in the digital world, this gets another boost in that Instagram, if you like posting pictures of yourself on Instagram, there's all sorts of software that can help you fix your face digitally, right? Where you can take away wrinkles, you can change your hair, your skin color, you can do all sorts of things with filters now. And in places like South Korea, it's considered gauche to upload a picture of yourself without editing it first. Young people will spend like half an hour messing with their face until they get the look that they want before they post that picture. And not surprisingly, South Korea is a place where there's a lot of plastic surgery, even for young people, because they're making their face, not just using the face that they've got. So faces matter a lot. And the beauty on faces is something which society tells us is really important. But there's another kind of beautiful face which happens where it's not the face you put on, but the face you get because there's an inner glow that comes out of you. And this sort of beauty, because these faces are truly beautiful, they come in any skin color, any age, any gender, any sexuality. These faces glow because of something that's going on inside them, even if they don't have a face which is considered conventionally beautiful. When you walk up to them and you say hi, you just see them light up. You go, that is a beautiful face, no matter what they look like. And I've found that the kinds of people who have that kind of glowing face, that glow from the inside, are often people who are really passionate about something in their life. Something they've fallen in love with, which makes it worth getting up in the morning. And often these are things which can be hobbies. Sometimes it's gardening, sometimes it's Tai Chi, sometimes it's yoga, sometimes it's quilting. I live with a quilter, I know this very well. It can be model trains, it can be collecting stamps. People who've really fallen in love with something, which they don't have to do, often find that the love of that spreads to the rest of their life. I know a woman who loves movies. She's a real night owl. She stays up all night long. And she'll watch like a movie or two a day. I'm not exaggerating. And anytime you ask her about movies, her face lights up and she can tell you the director and the actors and who was supposed to direct this movie but didn't get a chance, so they gave it to this other guy, on and on and on. It's amazing. But she lights up because she loves movies so much. So why do people act that way just because they love this thing? Well, I think it's because when you love something like that, you are perceiving harmonies. You're seeing a little bit of world that comes together. It's like you've found something where everything fits. And I see this in people in all sorts of different ways. The guy at the cottage who just spends all afternoon humming, tinkering, collecting old bits of junk and putting them into the shed and then saying, oh, I know I have a part for that, and then finds a way to fix the porch or fix the deck. And they hum all the way through it, because they're bringing together a little world. Stamp collectors are like that. People with model trains are totally like that. They build a world in their basement, right? And they just love it, and they're always looking for the next part for it. That feeling of creating harmony, and quilters are like this. They take just random bits of cloth and they create worlds, right? Little worlds and quilts and blankets and so forth. That ability to make a world is one of the things which makes us humans different from all the other animals. Beavers make dams, but that's it. They don't make nests, right? They don't make burrows. They just make dams, and they're really good at making dams, but that's all they're going to make. And a bird can make a nest, and a rabbit can make a burrow, but a rabbit's not going to make a nest. Each animal has been trained through instinct to make one thing very well. We can make anything we want. And the Bible tells us that we were made in God's image. God, the world maker. God, the one who can make all of everything. We were made in God's image, and that power for world making has been given to us. And so when we make little worlds, whether it's model train set or you're knitting something, we feel good because we are acting according to our nature. God made us this way to be people who really love making little worlds. And it can be found in everything. It can be found in interior design, where you take a boring old room and you make it beautiful. That's a little world. So many different ways of making this. And when we see that beauty, it makes us feel good. But let's face it, not everybody has a shine on their face. There's grumpy stamp collectors, and there's bitter quilters. Sure there are. Absolutely there are. Not everybody is, saved by their hobby. That's clearly not the case. Because the problem is, although they've seen the beauty and power of their little hobby, that little world that they're into, when they look at the world around them, they don't see the harmony. They see disharmony. They see things that aren't working very well. And this is where spiritual wisdom can help. Through prayer and meditation, which can be found in every religious tradition, human beings are invited to put their own concerns aside and get closer to the Creator, right? Closer to the source of all things. Imagine it as sort of dropping down to the bottom of a pond. The waves are your life. Temporarily, you drop down to the bottom of the pond and you connect with that creative force, which is at the root of everything. And in doing that, you are refreshed spiritually. And it doesn't mean that you're like experiencing bliss. Anybody who's ever meditated knows that meditation is often frustrating because you're trying to have that bliss, but then you get thoughts and, I should go shopping for this and blah, blah, blah. And you go, okay, back to my breath. Like the actual experience of meditation can be frustrating from time to time. But what's interesting about meditation and prayer, if you do it regularly, is that afterwards, the rest of your day is changed. It's much easier to see the harmonies of the world afterwards. Maybe you're walking down the street and the wind's blowing and the leaves are dancing in the tree, and you look down and there's this beautiful pattern just happening on the sidewalk. Another day you would have just blown past it. But meditation and prayer can make you more sensitive to the harmonies that are around you all the time. You hear a child laugh down the street. You see beauty in the way the rain is falling on a windshield. There are harmonies everywhere. The God who made this world is in love with harmony and puts them absolutely everywhere. And that's why, when you go to family reunions and people say, oh, don't ask Uncle Bob about old cars because that conversation's not going to end anytime soon. Well, it's because Uncle Bob has found the beauty of the world in old cars. He sees a harmony in the way the Ferrari came about and how Formula One has changed car design. He sees a whole there. And these wholes change. They're not static, right? Today is Super Bowl Sunday. It's Super Bowl Sunday, and for the first time, apparently, tens of millions of young women are going to watch the Super Bowl because Taylor Swift is dating one of the guys in the Super Bowl, right? Like, weird things. Two worlds, Swifties and NFL, are coming together. Nobody imagined that was going to happen, but it is happening. So these worlds aren't static. They can mold and morph just like God is molding and morphing the whole world all the time. We are world makers. It agrees with us when we make little worlds. The Japanese call this ikigai, that passion that you've found which helps you get out of the bed in the morning. Now, when Jesus was on the mountaintop and he was glowing, his passion is not for some little part of the world, but for the whole world. The whole thing. That's what he wants to save. And you'll note, Peter says, oh, let's make some booths. Let's stay up here. Let's just bask in the glory of all this heavenly light. And Jesus says, no. We got to go down. We've got work to do. In his case, dangerous work. Because when you fall in love with a harmony, Jesus is saying, you need to be able to stand up for it and protect it. And in our society, when you fall in love with something, like a hobby or something, that's not what we're encouraged to do. We're encouraged to see it as, well, that's an eccentric interest that person has. It's very, very personal. It's just a thing that they're into. We're not like Jesus, who says, nope, let's take it down into the world. Every summer in this city, there's usually at least one really big march against climate change. And I've been to a lot of those, and I can tell you that the people who show up are young people in their 20s and 30s. There's a few gray hairs, but not too many gray-headed people there. It's mostly people in their 20s and 30s. And you can see why they would go. It's their world. They're very concerned about how the future's going to go. But the fact is, there's a lot of old people who love nature. There's a lot of old people who have cottages and who love to go fishing and hiking. It would make such a difference if, like Jesus, coming down off the mountaintop, older people went to these marches to make themselves seen. You don't have to do the whole march. You can just show up at the end. That's okay. That's where the press is. They're just taking pictures from Queen's Park at the crowd. Man, imagine what the politicians would think if they looked out on that crowd of, green radicals and saw a bunch of people in walkers. Like, oh my goodness, I'm in trouble with the old people. They care about nature too? Oh man, the cottage people are mad. They want nature to last. They want the loons to keep crying for decades. That would make such a difference. We Christians are not asked to just bask in the light of the harmony of the world that God has put here, but rather we're asked to act like Jesus, who basked in the light, was able to show Moses and Elijah, yeah, I am here, and watch what I do next. And Jesus left the mountain and went down into the world to spread that love. And that's what we're asked to do, not just to have a good time, but to stand up for the things that matter. That's the Christian way. Because Jesus got pinned to one of those to save all of us, and he's asking us, you don't have to die for this, but I'd like you to try. Because there's so much harmony and so much beauty in this world, and it can't protect itself. We humans can make worlds, but we can also take them apart. And it's incumbent on us who feel the love, who can see the glory of these harmonies, to say, we want that to last. We want to protect that. So let's do it. Amen.